Hello and welcome to episode 68 of the HamCorp training manual. In this episode, we will address some material shortages and set up a quantum bridge powered oxygen pump on Jupiter's moon Callisto. After that, we manually craft the very first LUV electric motor. Today, we start making LUV electric components. My goal for now, my immediate goal, is to make one stack of electric motors. Because of course the motors, as you know, are kind of fundamental. They're used in every other component. So having a nice big stack of these would be nice, but I've looked at the materials that go into this and these are expensive. One stack of electric motors is going to take 1024 ruridite ingots. That is a lot. Things have scaled up, huh? Though to be honest, that's the only super expensive thing. Everything else is pretty reasonable in quantity. And of course, at the start of every new voltage tier, I like to look at the recipes for the different components and then see kind of what materials go into them. So here we have samarium, which we automated last episode, or at least we automated the production of the dust. HSSS, we have that already. Ruridite, we just made some. We've had ruthenium and iridium just sitting in storage for the most part. But yeah, we need a lot of ruridite. Yttrium barium cuprate wires or cables. We haven't made these before, but we can. Indoloi 140. Needs indium, which is a bit expensive. 5 indium is enough for almost 2 stacks of motors. So it is expensive, but it's manageable. And lubricant. Yeah, lubricant's basically free. And you might have noticed there's also this reads research result thing. This is kind of like a program circuit. This tells the assembly line what to craft. And you have to make these for each new assembly line recipe. So for the electric motor, the way you do that is by scanning an IV electric motor. And it kind of progresses from there for higher tiers. For the ZPM one, I'm going to have to scan an electric motor LUV. And then for the UV one, I'll have to scan ZPM and so on. So I'm going to start stockpiling some of these materials, or at least teaching the recipe to most of them. And then I'll try to see where there are bottlenecks. I know, for example, HSSS is going to be a slow craft because it's a vacuum freezer and blast furnace recipe. Same with ruridite, that's also going to be pretty slow. Also the yttrium barium cuprate, that's also a blast, so this is also going to be slow. I think samarium is also a blast. Yeah, they're all going to be slow, all of these. So I think it might be time to do a little bit of, instead of having to remember these things and manually make sure I have enough for on-demand crafting, I think it's time we make an ME level maintainer. I'm surprised I haven't made this yet, to be honest. This is basically an applied energistics thing that keeps things in stock. Oh, apparently I do already have it taught to the system. I guess it's used for something, probably. Oh yeah, the ME level terminal, which was used for making the wireless level terminal, which I used for the universal one. Right, okay. So here's the ME level maintainer. You can set different items in here. So for example, I want samarium, and I want to have 1000 at any time, and I want to craft in batches of 15. And that's how you'd set this up. Another useful thing you can craft is the ME level terminal. This shows you any level maintainer thingies around your base or around your network. Right now, I only have fluid level emitters, and these are in my power building, if you remember, over here, because I used the level to trigger whether or not to send it to the gas turbine. So you can remotely look at these or access these and change these? Maybe not. I don't know if you can change these, but something just useful to have. And once you have a level maintainer on your system, you can also see that in the level terminal. So instead of putting this here, I could make like a room for it, or I could put it down here somewhere, change one of these walls to just be a big wall of level maintainers, or something like that. And then I can just use the terminal to access it. Doesn't look like I can edit the level maintainer from here, but at least there's a highlight block feature, and then I can go find it in the world. I've set up a couple of level maintainers, 8 of them, and I've put a bunch of different things in here. These are all of the ingots used for each voltage tier. I'm skipping titanium and tungsten steel because I make those as part of ore processing. So I actually don't have a recipe for smelting tungsten steel. So if I'm ever out of tungsten steel, then tough shit. I have to go mining, basically. But I have a way to monitor that, and I'll come back to that. I've also set up covered cables, dense covered cables, interfaces, HSSS for LUV parts, ruridite for LUV parts, and all of the circuits. So as you can see, some of these bars are red, and that's because these 3 circuits, I haven't taught those recipes to AE2. So it doesn't know how to make them, so it says errored. If you hold shift, it tells you what errored means. And to have a nice clean display of all of these different ingots, including the ones that are not being level maintained, I made some storage monitors. I'm sure there's going to be a nicer way to organize these at some point, but for right now I just want to have something. So some of these are good, most of these are not. What this has done is it's automated the request of crafts. I didn't request any of these. Applied Energistics did it by itself, and because I've set such large numbers, 1,000 of each thing basically, all my crafting CPUs are going to be consumed for some time. In the meantime, I think I'm just going to look through the quest book and see how to progress, and also just take a break, I guess. Just let the game run. Now, believe it or not, I have some gas problems. And it's not because of what I ate at Fat Phil's for breakfast. I'm actually out of oxygen, which is crazy. I'm just gobbling up this oxygen because I have so many crafts going on right now, both passive and these automatically requested ones, and they all just gobble up my oxygen. And I'm not able to keep up with the oxygen consumption because my entire oxygen supply comes from this one sugarcane patch, which is macerated and then electrolyzed to get sugar and then oxygen. And it's processing quite fast. The only thing is I literally just don't make enough sugarcane fast enough. So I've been looking into ways to get around this because, yeah, I could just spam more crops, but that's kind of annoying because I have to breed up some more sugarcane, and that just takes some time. I mean, sugarcane is fast, but still, it's just gonna take longer than I want. I don't want, like, for example, I'm using the oxygen to run my power system, so that this is kind of a big problem. So I need a more immediate solution. And it turns out, if I make an oil gas fluid drilling rig, we can now drill for oxygen. Not in the overworld, but on Kalisto. You can get oxygen from pumping Kalisto. So I think I'm going to set up an oxygen pump there. It's not infinite, so I will have to move it eventually. But I think this solution gives me the most oxygen the fastest. So I'm going to do that. Now we have the tier 4 oil gas fluid drilling rig, but there's a slight problem here. We need to use at least an IV energy hatch to power this. And that's a problem because the IV combustion generator, which is called the Ultimate Chemical Energy Releaser, this is going to use way too much cetane boosted diesel because it's 50% efficiency. So instead of doing this, I don't think I even produce it fast enough for this. Maybe I do, I don't know. But instead of doing that, I'm going to use singularities and a quantum bridge. This will allow me to transfer applied energistics across dimensions. And I'm going to use that to power the drilling rig by using this, a P2P tunnel, but set to GTEU. Yes, indeed, you can transfer electricity using P2P tunnels. However, there's a 5% cost to this, so you only get 95% of the EU you put in at the other end. And typically, that's more than the loss we have in our cables here, which is why I haven't been using it so far. But getting it across dimensions, I think a 5% tax is totally fine. So to make the quantum bridge, I need 2 quantum link chambers, 16 quantum rings, and 2 quantum entangled singularities. The singularities we've almost seen before. I did a while ago make a singularity for the wireless terminal. And basically what I need to do is I need to blow it up, and then I get 2 quantum entangled singularities. As the name suggests, they're quantum entangled, so every pair is unique. So if I want to do another quantum bridge, I'm going to have to make another pair of entangled singularities. So I need to get another singularity and also a little bit of tiny TNT. Now all we do, place our TNT, turn off my magnet, and then throw my singularity. Throw my singularity and ender pearl dust on. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this on ice. Okay, let's do it here. TNT, ender pearl dust, singularity, ignite. Oh, what a cute explosion. And here it is. Quantum entangled singularities. Now I just need to gather up the rest of the stuff, and then we can start this up. And now we're off to Callisto. One thing to add to my flight checklist here is a power source and an energy acceptor. The quantum bridge needs to be powered on the other side, and then once it's going, it will power itself from the quantum bridge that I'm going to build on this side. So actually, before we fly, let me build it. I'm just going to put it here in the power building. I don't think this is going to be the permanent spot, but whatever for now. The quantum entangled singularity goes inside the center here. And now I think we just connect this up to AE2. Is this setup stupid and goofy? Don't answer that. Now I just need to go set this up on the other side. And now I'm back on Kalisto. Just gonna drop down here and find some oxygen. Just like the oil, you just need to scan bedrock. Alright, I had to scan for a while. Not too long, but it was starting to get annoying. I found a few oxygen gas fields, but this is the biggest one so far. And it's not even that big, to be honest, but it's big enough. I also found a few liquid air, which could be interesting in the future. Especially this one, 94 to 154 liters liquid air. That's pretty decently sized. But for now, I'm just after oxygen. And the nice thing about the oil gas fluid drilling rig 4 is that it works on 8x8 chunks, which means it does the entire field at once, which is very, very nice. So I'm gonna dig up some space here, assemble that, and then we'll put together the quantum ring, and then we'll see if we can get it to work. Okay, the ring has been set up, the pump has been set up as well, and now we need to make the connection with the ring. So first of all, we're going to have to power up the ring, and for that I have this energy acceptor and capacitor bank. This is discharging, which is a good sign. And now I think I can start making connections with P2Ps here. So this is the output hatch where the oxygen is going to come in. This is the input for the GTEU, and you can set the types here because these are ME right now, but to set it to EU, just right click it with a cable. And to set it to fluid, just right click with a bucket. And these have not come online, which makes me a bit worried. Oh, it started working. I don't know what I did. So if you have an issue here, then I'm sorry. Good luck. And I now realize that I didn't set those up in the overworld, so I'm gonna have to do that. And I also realized that I've forgotten to make the advanced GregTech sensor card. Oh no, it's the metrics transmitter cover. So I have forgotten to make that. So I'm gonna have to make a quick trip home, and while we're there, I'm also gonna set up the two P2P links. Okay, here we are. I've just put up a little shitty setup here because I have plans to kind of change how my fluids are being stored. So this is going to be temporary no matter where I put it. So I'm just gonna put it here for now. I'll come back to those plans later. But now it's time to link these P2Ps. Or it would be, but I can't see the other side. I wonder if something's gone wrong with the ring. Maybe I forgot to chunk load it? That's possible. But before I leave, I'll just say that I have the GTEU P2P tunnel on this transformer. Actually, I'm not 100% sure this is going to work. So I think instead I'm going to put down a cable. Ooh, dangerous. And then I'm going to put the P2P tunnel on the cable. And I have the fluid P2P tunnel connected to a super tank, and the super tank is connected to a fluid storage bus. Alright, back on Callisto. Now we can link up these P2P tunnels. So here's the GTEU. This one is the output, so we want to bind to input. And this one is the input, so we want to bind to output. And now if we turn this on, hopefully it starts running. Amazing. Now all my gas problems have been pretty much solved. Not really because of what I did, more because of all the smelting that was happening is now done. So my gas production has had time to recover. But for now, let's get back onto making a stack of electric LUV motors. Now to make the electric motor, we do need the data stick that has the information. And like I mentioned before, you need to scan an IV electric motor to get this, and this is going to take some time. So I'm going to chuck this motor into the scanner. This is going to process for 30 minutes, and I'll be back at the end of that. And actually, while I do the next few things after the scan is done, I'm also going to scan the conveyor module data stick, the pump, the piston, the emitter, the sensor, and the robot arm. It seems like they all take the same amount of time, so each one of these is 30 minutes of waiting and 3.5 hours to get through all of these. But after the motor one is done, we'll talk about making the first motors and then also about automation. Here we are. I have all the materials for one electric motor. Really, I have the materials for all of them, but I do want to also automate the assembly line. But to show you how the assembly line works in the first place, I'm just going to make a single one. Now, if we look at the recipe for the motor, there are 2 fluid inputs and 5 material inputs. What we want to do to manually craft things in an assembly line is to put these items in specific positions. Counting up from 0, the molten indalloy 140 goes in input hatch number 0, which is the one closest to the controller. The lubricant goes into input hatch number 1, and similarly for the items, the samarium rod goes into input bus number 0, the long HSSS rod goes into number 1, fine Ruridit wire goes into number 2 and number 3. These do have to go into separate input hatches. You cannot put them both in the same input hatch, so it's actually quite important that we use ULV input buses because these only have one slot. And of course, the yttrium barium cupric cable goes into number 4. Once the items are in place and the fluids are in place, we can put in a data stick, and that can go into one of 2 places. So if you want to have an assembly line that is dedicated to a single recipe, you can just put it in the controller here. And then if I start this, it starts making my LUV motor. But if you want to do multiple recipes with the same assembly line, we need a new block to replace, I think, the grate machine casing. I don't know. Yes, indeed. It has to go right next to the controller. And what we put there is the data access hatch. This is basically storage for data sticks, and it acts as if you have multiple kind of slots here that you can put data sticks into. So that's how you craft manually, but we want to automate this because this is going to get very tedious very fast if I'm manually crafting with it. Now, different inputs have to go into different locations, specific locations, and actually I do want to clean these out and empty these. And we have done something like this before, if you remember. The way we automated the infusion altar was very similar, with storage buses and priorities. And remember, that put inputs into specific locations. So we want to do basically the same setup, also including fluids this time. And of course, these recipes are larger than the regular crafting recipes, which means we need to use a processing terminal. Normally, you'd have to make some LUV components to make this at all, but if you've made the universal wireless terminal, you already have this. And I already did this when I was making the infusion altar, so I'm just going to use this. Luckily, there's no aspects I have to deal with here, so there's nothing weird, and I can just encode it. As for the specifics of the setup for the assembly line, I need to do a little bit more crafting for AE2 components, and then I'll come back to that. But here it is. Here's our very first LUV motor. Quick side note, by the way, there's no reason to make the data access hatch because you can just go straight for the advanced data access hatch, which has 4 times as many slots. And at this point in the game, you should be able to make everything here. So truly, there is no reason to make the regular one. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp Training Manual. In the next episode, we will automate the assembly line using a subnet and start refactoring parts of the base to allow us to scale up, as it seems material requirements start to drastically increase in this voltage tier. I have nothing funny to say about that. See you next time.